Welcome to r/Malicious Compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. And today we have two great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story, boss doesn't believe me, inputs a hiring freeze then hires girlfriend. I make girlfriend do the SH locations so that boss gives me an increased budget. The second story, radio technician is charged over minor infringement, leading to pilots begging CO that punishment be dropped. The first story is, tree price too low? Too many wasps? Don't believe me? Have I got a job for your girlfriend? This story was from my first season working as a foreman for a new tree planting company. I was an experienced professional and had worked for multiple companies previously. The initial supervisor quits a few weeks into the season for personal reasons, and his replacement, we will call Raging, takes over. Raging had rage and anger issues and was not a morning person. Usually I would let him rage out in the morning and then do the job my way anyway, and then we would talk calmly about it in the evening and resolve the issue. Now I got paid commission of how much my crew performs, so when my crew doesn't make money, I don't make money. Now some of the morning incidents I had to deal with included things like Raging punching one of my workers and shaking him violently because he dropped a box. Raging is 6'5" and 250 pounds. Another time he said a woman was on her rag when she complained to him about the tree pricing. He would publicly belittle me, usually making jokes about anything I requested the night before work. Oh, you need a larger quad. Can't hack, huh? And I was usually denied. Now I always approach Raging and talk to him in the evenings regarding issues privately and professionally. I did this so as to show respect to his position, and then we would be able to resolve any issues that came up privately. Now midway through the season I had arranged for 3 experienced workers to show up and help finish out the year. This was all properly arranged and documented. Now 2 days before this date, Raging's girlfriend shows up. We will call her Nice, and is hired that morning. That morning, Raging makes an announcement in front of the entire camp and informs us that no one will be allowed to hire anymore at all. When I approach Raging to talk about the situation of hiring a freeze just as he hires his girlfriend, his response was to start yelling at me in front of the camp and to loudly exclaim, "Well, I'm the boss, and I said you can't hire anyone else. My girlfriend is going to work, and if you don't like it, you can go to the owners if you want." So I hired Nice. Now I'm peeved. I've been dealing with this verbal guy's abuse for weeks. I'm a professional and have been doing this job for years quite successfully, with other companies. Now he's embarrassed me publicly, and it's going to cost me lots of money, because I'll be down 3 staff for the remainder of the season. As I'm not the type of guy to complain to the higher-ups, I decide I'll follow Raging's instructions for the rest of the year, literally, and document the entire process, and just refuse to work with him in the future. I documented everything by emailing him a copy of any work conversations we had on a daily basis. When the inevitable blow-up occurs, I would have documentation to back it up. A lawyer told me if you make transcripts of a conversation and put it in writing and provide it to the other person, it's a document of record, as long as they have reasonable time to respond to any mistakes or changes. The next morning I bring up an issue that the site I'm about to start the next day, the Mountain of Death, is very rocky, has a lot of wasps on it, and is generally underpriced. In addition, it has a mislabeled scale on the map. Therefore, the site itself is an order of magnitude larger IRL, and that this is going to cause major organizational problems going forward. His response that I was full of SH, and he won't believe anything I tell him, that there's no price increase due to wasps. He also said that unless someone he trusts, like Nice, brings it up, he won't believe me anyway. Cue malicious compliance. I'm sorry, Nice, but your fault for dating and eventually marrying Raging. Next day, we start up work and I know that the Mountain of Death is 10 times larger than the map says, is underpriced, and is just crappy. So I put Nice into an area that according to the map she should finish in half a day, but in reality will take much longer. 10 times larger scale. It's also the worst rocky, thorny, and crappy piece of land I could find, and as a bonus it turns out it was really filled with wasps. We averaged 11 stings a person per day on the Mountain of Death. I show Nice the area, explain her the instructions, and tell her the price. She goes in and comes out crying not even 10 minutes later. This land is crap, and the price should be way higher, and it's way bigger than you told me, and it's filled with wasps. I explained my conversation with Raging, that the price was firm and that apparently I'm full of SH, that he doesn't believe me, but if she wanted she could mention it to him. That night she goes home and has a few strong words to say to Raging. The next morning I get instructed by Raging to increase the price for her only, and I get a lecture about being fair and not just send one person to do an SH job. He then confirms that no, there will not be a price increase for the crew, but just for her, and no, the map can't be wrong. It's because I'm full of SH. And no, he's too busy to come out to verify any of this. So the next day I put her back in the mountain of death again as it's not finished. She's visibly distraught at this, but I explain again the situation, and that the area she started working was her responsibility. But to be a fair foreman, I'll increase the price a little to make it up to her, and provide her with some help in the form of another planter. I split the increased budget on her and the other planter. Sure enough, they come out peeved at the situation. Nice is crying and telling me that she's scared of wasps and that working this area was dangerous. That night, Nice goes back and gives Raging an earful about how I'm making her do that area at that price, that the wasps are dangerous, etc., etc. Next morning, I get yelled at again. The price for Nice is way too low. I remind him that's the price for the entire area, because it's all that bad, that I have to spread my budget around to the rest of the crew as well, or it'll be favoritism. But if he increases my budget, I can pay her and everyone properly. Of course, the answer is no, but Nice still needs another price increase. So next day, I send in Nice with a different planter, and pay her and them the same thing. Same thing, but the next day I get yelled at about it being dangerous to work in areas where there were so many wasps, etc., and that she deserves more pay. Finally, things come to a head when in front of my crew one morning, Raging says I have to pay Nice more. Now, the rest of the crew hears this and jumps into the conversation. What about us? Why does she just get a price increase? The whole crew had been in that SH area at least one day now. Raging doesn't realize that he now has shown favoritism to his girlfriend in public, and that he was aware about the issues. But he's mad and is riled up, so he yells back at them. I just stand back and watch him go off the handle. When he threatened getting physical with one of my crew, I stepped in at that point. That night I get a call from the owner. Apparently Raging called him up and ranted about me to him for a while. Now at this point I explained to the owner the story, and that I had tried to resolve all these issues before they came up, that I have paperwork to back it up, and that Raging is clearly showing favoritism. Owner doesn't want the emails at this time, but he'll look into it. I asked what I should do in the meantime, and he said just keep doing what you're doing, and if you're correct, he will retroactively make up a situation by increasing the price. So next 3 days, Nice goes back into the area, repeat wasp stings, getting yelled at the next day, etc. It's now the last few days of the season, and this has been going on for weeks. Raging is peeved because I should have been done the area in 6 days, and now we're at day 17 or something. He starts telling publicly people that the only way it makes sense is if I'm stashing. Term used to describe a planter who hides, buries, and destroys trees, but claims payment of them, a big no-no, and I'm an idiot because the map cannot be wrong. A different company owner shows up the next day with his teenage daughter and runs into me on the block. He wants somewhere to plant for the day, to show her how it's done. In my head, I'm like, do I have the spot for you? But you should know it's crappy land, rocky, waspy, etc., and that the price is X. The owner is disappointed because he wanted his daughter to go in and make some money and have fun on an easy area, but also that she shouldn't get special treatment, so that they will go in and work the area. So he and his daughter went into the block and planted for about 5 minutes. When he came out, he totally agreed with me about all the rock, wasps, thorns, etc., that the price was way too low. In addition, he measured the block and agreed that the map scale was off. That night, I got a retroactive price increase. All my crew got paid way more for the remainder of the block, and retroactively what they had already completed. Don't worry, I gave Nice a hefty increase as well because she earned it, and Raging was fired. The next story is, punish me for not polishing a button? Okay, I'll ground an entire RAF base. So this one is from the 1950s, and not me, but a story my late father-in-law, FIL, used to entertain us with. So FIL was in the RAF, and was based at RAF Seletar, a base in Singapore. He had a really cool job being a radio technician, and part of his duties was to check the radios on the aircraft before they flew. This was a mandatory check, and without it the aircraft were grounded. One particularly hot and sultry day, FIL had been working an overnight 16-hour shift, had about 4 hours rest, and was then required to be on parade for an inspection. At the parade, the officer on duty inspected the men's uniforms to make sure that everyone was dressed correctly. This particular officer was well known for being up his own A, and delighted in writing people up for the slightest infringement. He arrives where FIL is standing smartly to attention. FIL's uniform had been stored neatly knowing the inspection was coming up, and he had made sure he was showered and shaved, despite only finishing his shift 4 hours earlier. Despite this, the officer spotted an infringement. FIL had not polished the back of the brass buttons on his jacket. That's right, not even a visible transgression, but one where the officer had to move the buttons to check them. So FIL was put on jankers. That's on a charge, and he was confined to camp for 7 days with regular extra punishment parades, kit inspections, and menial duties, including having to work in the kitchens washing the pans, and generally doing all those unpleasant jobs that are suitable to be used as a punishment. After the punishment duties, he was again paraded, inspected, and then sent back to barracks to prepare the next day's punishments before finally going to bed. Unsurprisingly, FIL was mightily hacked off at being punished for such a minor offense, especially after doing an overnighter. So he was on Jankers, and he would be a good airman and avoid any further infringements. As I said, FIL was a radio technician. Not only that, but at this time and place, he was the only radio technician on the base. Cue some lovely MC. Pilots at this time were given a basic pay that wasn't that high, about £80 per month. To them, that is, an apprentice would be paid somewhere between around £2 to £7 per week, depending on their age. To supplement their income, pilots had to fly a certain number of hours each month to qualify for their flying allowance, which almost doubled their pay rate. The pilots at RAF Seletar made sure they were up in the air, often, as not to miss out on the bonus. However, FIL was on Jankers. He is not allowed to do his normal duties. He's the only radio technician on base. All the planes at the base that haven't had a radio check since their last flight are now grounded. All went well for the first day. FIL was on his punishment. Pilots had a day off, all was quiet. On the second day, the pilots started getting a little antsy. What about this flying allowance? FIL, asked one pilot entering the kitchen area. Could you be a good chap and check my radio? Sorry, Mr. Pilot, replied FIL. I'm on Jankers. Not allowed to leave the kitchen, sir. Oh, okay, said the disappointed pilot and left sadly. By the end of the second day, around half the pilots on base had gone to the kitchens to ask FIL to check their radios. Once his duties were done and he had gone back to barracks, hopeful pilots came to his barracks block. Hello, FIL, another pilot ventured. Any chance you could check the old radio? Sorry, sir, replied FIL. I'm on Jankers. Suspended from normal duties, sir. Yes, pressed the officer. But you're not on duty now, though, are you? I'm not on duty, sir, and therefore unable to carry out any duties, sir. One after the other, a series of pilots came to ask FIL to please stop being punished and come and check the radios, saying that they would okay it. FIL refused. He was on Jankers, and he would be a good airman and do his punishment as so ordered. I'm unaware as to whether he was offered any further inducements, but all requests met with a polite but firm no. The pilots got together and did the maths. After finding out that FIL's punishment was due to last another 5 days, most of them were going to miss out on their flying pay. This was disastrous. Servants had to be paid, laundry bills, living expenses, and dear gods, the bar bill at the mess. Urgent action needed to be taken. By day 3, the pilots had all as a man spoken to their superior officers, who then took the complaints to the base's commanding officer. The CO investigated, and after a little chat with a certain up-his-own-A officer, somehow FIL's Jankers was cancelled. Not just stopped, but the charge was dismissed and dropped completely. Not on his record, never happened, and please go back on duty now and check those radios. For the rest of his time at RAF Seletar, FIL did not receive another administrative punishment. He'd learned his lesson, and the officer had learned his. I hope you love these stories. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know when the new videos come out.